What is the most important thing when it comes to training? When it comes to like seeking advice on how to train, we're often given a set of like really arbitrary numbers about how many days a week we should train, how many sets we need to do, how many reps in each set, how many different exercises we need to do. Most of this doesn't actually matter that much. The most important key thing is intensity, and numbers can often be quite misleading. For instance, you might be given a training program where you're told that you need to work your way up to 3 sets of 8 reps on bench press. Now that seems simple enough. So you go, you train, you warm up, you put 70 kilograms on the bar, you do your 8 reps, count it out. When you're done, you just rack the weight, that's it. Because you think you've reached the magic number which is gonna cause growth. But the problem is, you might have still had 10 reps in the tank. And if you've spent quite a lot of money on this training program, which a lot of people may have, you will not get the results that you thought you might have based on what you've seen from previous clients. But the problem was not that the training program has an issue, it's that you didn't put in the intensity. Those 8 reps that you hit should not be easy. It should be reaching a point of failure towards the end of it. So those 8 reps at that particular weight won't cause the growth mechanism to activate. You would need to increase the weight substantially in order to be able to achieve that growth mechanism. See, it isn't very clear to people the effort they should be putting into their training. When you're just given a list of numbers, you're not exactly certain on how the intensity should be. I know when I began, I wasn't too certain on the intensity that I needed to put into the sets and rep schemes that I was putting out. It was actually based on my lack of knowledge of the weights I was capable of lifting that I went to failure. And since then, my ADD has played a massive advantage because I can't even count. So I will halfway through the set forget how many reps I've done and just simply go to failure on every single working set. So the key factor is how hard you make the exercises. I could put 70 kilograms on the bar and easily do 8 reps. And if that was the rep scheme I think I'm supposed to do, I would assume I'm gonna get growth from that. I'm not. My capability with 70 kilograms is upwards of 25 reps. I could do that very easily. So only doing 8 reps of that potential 30 that I'm capable of would not even be close to activating the growth mechanism. The growth mechanism that causes hypertrophy to happen would only occur in those final 5 repetitions where I'm really struggling through the movement. In order to get that growth mechanism to activate, you have to get close or even potentially beyond failure. Obviously, beyond is difficult unless you have a training partner, but if you look at someone like Dorian Yates or even Mike Mentor, or a lot of the time how Tom Platz would train, they reach a point beyond failure because they have assisted reps, and that's really what gets the growth to go beyond those points, which is why Mike Mentor and Dorian Yates trained so little time, is they would just have sets that would go so beyond what they were actually physically capable of that they were bound to grow. As Mike Mentor once said,
if you don't know what intensity is, then you don't know how to work out, in other words. I said there has to be something about the workout itself. There has to be some element, some variable about the workout itself, which itself is responsible for triggering or flipping on the growth machinery inside the muscle. And of course, it is related to the intensity of effort involved with any given set of an exercise.
Executing that last, almost impossible rep causes the body to dip into its reserve capacity or ability. And since your body obviously only has a very limited reserve ability, the body protects itself from future assault on its reserves by enlarging upon its existing ability through the compensatory buildup of more muscle mass.
and that's why you need to progressively overload. Once your body has adapted to moving more weight that would have previously been beyond your capability before, that now no longer stimulated, and you now have to go with an extra rep or some extra weight or anything to push beyond that. But this mechanism can never truly occur if we don't push ourselves to an extreme level of intensity. This is absolutely necessary when it comes to hypertrophy training, at least. This doesn't necessarily apply to strength or cardio training. So using the previous example of like an effective rep scheme of 8 reps, in order for me to achieve the kind of activation I would need, 70 kilograms would not be adequate. I would have to go to about 110 kilograms on bench press in order to have that 7th or 8th rep be the most effective in activating the growth mechanism. But this is never clear when you have a program that you've bought from someone else or even had one written up for you by a personal trainer, because the only person who knows the intensity that you're capable of is you. It's very sad, but the vast majority of people that I see in the gym phone in their training ultimately. They put together incredible programs that they've done from tons of research. They follow a very strict diet. They're in there rigorously training the right exercises, doing the right movements, but they just simply do not put in the correct amount of effort that they need to. And they fail to see results. And they'll complain that, oh, they have bad genetics, or it's just not fair, accuse other people of being on roids, but it becomes very evident why they don't have the results when you watch them train. They simply go through the motions, counting reps and stopping when they think they're done based on a number in their head. They just move the weight in a way they think they're supposed to without actually feeling it engage their body and having a mind-muscle connection and contracting the muscle as deeply as possible. This means they stop their sets way too early and leave like 10 solid repetitions in the bank. So this completely minimizes the amount of growth they can achieve in the gym. I remember training with a guy who bragged about being in the gym every day for months, but he was failing to see results. And I sort of wondered what was going on. So we trained together the one time and we were doing an arm workout. And he would literally just move the weight down a peg, but not put in any effort, and just simply move the weight and hardly feel any stimulation. Around 30 minutes into the workout, he'd been told it's dangerous to overtrain. So he just sat down on the bench and stopped working out. And I said, no, unacceptable, and took him back to actually do the set. And he was actually shocked with me forcing him and giving him assisted reps till failure and teaching him how to do partials and things like that, how much stimulation he actually got, and he'd never actually trained like that before. And the difference in the amount of weight he was moving was like substantial. He was working previously with what he thought was an effective amount with half the weight that he was actually capable of. And not to do cheat sets or anything like that, or cheat reps, but actually do like controlled, solid movements. He had twice the capability that he thought he did. Now, intensity doesn't necessarily always look the same. For instance, if you look at Mike Thurston as opposed to Dorian Yates versus Tom Platz, each of these gentlemen train with quite a lot of intensity, but it all looks very different. Tom Platz's movements are explosive, violent, and he goes beyond failure and pushes himself to the absolute extreme, but there's very little control. He's not squeezing slowly and focusing on contracting the muscle, whereas Mike Thurston will very slowly control the movement, and every single rep of every single set will be slow, methodical, and you can literally see his mind-muscle connection. And I think this is why he's got such mature, developed muscles, and controversial, but he might be natural. Now, of course, if you are a beginner, you don't have to train to such an extreme intensity. Because you've never trained before, your muscles are completely unstimulated. Any sort of stimulation at all will activate the growth mechanism to some degree. But as you progress beyond that beginner stage, those first few months of beginner gains, where literally looking at a weight will put on muscle mass, you have to learn to increase the intensity. Otherwise, you will stagnate, plateau, and be disappointed. And that's always what I see. People train for like 6 or 7 months, stagnate, and they think their genetics are crap and it's not even worth bothering training. Now, we all know my opinion on like using scientific studies when it comes to bodybuilding. I don't think it's necessary. It can be effective, but it sort of confuses the whole process. However, for the sake of my argument, and of course you can argue anything, I'm going to include some studies that have shown that the most effective hypertrophy training comes from reaching failure. So it's important when you're training to be very deliberate with how you control the weight. I think that's probably the most effective way to avoid potential injury. You can of course do it by trying to throw the weights back and forth, but if you're doing a bicep curl or a tricep push down, instead of violently throwing the weight back and forth using momentum and all this stuff, learn to maybe swing it up a little bit, but control the weight down if you're doing a bicep curl. And instead of just throwing the ropes down with a tricep push down, instead try to very deliberately control the way the muscles feel. Make sure to lower the weight slowly so that the triceps are getting a full concentric and eccentric movement, so both up and down. And just train deliberately. And when you can no longer do full reps, don't think you have to stop or try force it down with some motion. Just do partial reps and go beyond failure. And every once in a while, train with an effective training partner. It's not someone you're going to chat to in the gym and waste all your time with, but someone who, when you start to struggle on sets, can help you lift it up just enough so that you can go beyond what you're physically capable of. But just make sure whatever you're doing, every single session, that you train with the utmost intensity you possibly can so that you can achieve growth.
Come on! Okay. Congratulations. You achieved failure. Failure has been achieved, thank God. Now, the only place to go from failure is to win. You have to achieve failure. You have to take it that far. Nobody wants to go that far. It's too scary. But you know something? I got news for you. That's where winning is.
And this applies to many things in life. You can go through the motions for absolutely everything. You can go through the motions in your relationships. You can go through the motions in your professional career. You can go through the motions in your psychological development. But really the best results will come. You will have the least lackluster results if you put in effort and focus. I'm gonna finish this off with a really beautiful comment I received that I thought resonated really well on my video about science-based lifting. Weightlifting is an art, not a science. Anyone that's done it for any amount of time knows you feel your way through every workout, with none being the same. You eventually find out that pre-calculating everything is a waste of time because you're not some precise machine, though your reps might appear that way. It's all about how well you can work these muscles on any given day, on that given set, on that given rep, and the only way to do that is to feel it for yourself. Things are going to change in life. That means you can't perform exactly the same way every single time you go into the gym. You might eat differently, you might not sleep as well, you might get flu or be fighting off some virus. But the only thing you can control is the intensity that you bring to every single session you go into. Don't beat yourself up if you can't achieve what you did 3 weeks ago when you were at your optimal. The only thing you have is how intensely you can train in any given moment, and the only person who can judge that is you. Thank you for watching.